welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and, frankly, incredibly esoteric topic. We're going to unpack the channeled spiritual messages of the ancient figure, Zoroaster. Now, we're looking at a highly unique source text here, one that offers a completely unorthodox lens on cosmic history, human reincarnation, and the unseen spiritual battles that supposedly shape our entire world. It's a wild journey stretching all the way from forgotten ancient continents right up to prophecies about our modern geopolitical landscape. So, let's get into it. Just to lay the groundwork and establish our source material impartially, we are examining texts authored by Ryuho Okawa. These books present channeled spiritual messages from beings like Zoroaster and Maitreya. What we're doing today is simply breaking down the specific and deeply esoteric worldview offered inside these pages. They lay out an alternative spiritual history of the cosmos, along with some very distinct commentary on global religions. Whether you approach this as literal truth, really interesting mythology, or just a fascinating sociological phenomenon, the system of thought here is incredibly structured. It's an intense thought experiment that challenges how we typically view historical timelines and the unseen forces out there. All right, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the core of Zoroastrianism. Second, Eskrent and Mani. Third, the genealogy of light and dark. Fourth, views on modern religions. And finally, number 5, the reincarnation plan for China. Section 1. The core of Zoroastrianism, dualism, and the afterlife. To understand where this is all going, we really have to rewind to the ancient past. The source tells us that the absolute heart of Zoroaster's teachings boils down to one concept: the dualism of good and evil. And in this text, we're not just talking about a vague philosophical idea. It's presented as a literal, massive cosmic clash between two opposing forces. On one side, you have the god of light, Ahura Mazda. On the exact opposite side is the devil of darkness, known as Ahriman. The core teaching was essentially a stark, binary choice for humanity. Believe in the god of light, and whatever you do, don't let Ahriman drag you down into hell. And this intense, stark choice, it carries right over into their concept of the afterlife. The channeled Zoroaster gives us this incredibly vivid and honestly terrifying image of the afterlife judgment. He describes it as a broad sword spanning a deep ravine. Think of it as a bridge that the deceased absolutely have to cross. It serves a very similar conceptual purpose to the Sanzu River in Japanese Buddhist tradition, or the river Styx in Greek mythology. So how does this sword bridge actually work? Well, it's pretty wild. For good souls who lived righteous lives, the broad blade magically turns flat, giving them a completely safe and easy passage straight across the ravine and into heaven. But for evil souls, the blade flips so the razor-sharp edge is facing straight up. They can't cross. Their spiritual bodies are literally split, and they plummet down into the dark valley of hell. The text suggests that these super-physical, highly vivid depictions of judgment were intentionally paired with their earthly customs, like sky burials, to firmly teach ancient people how to completely detach from their physical bodies. Section 2. Eskrent and Mani, a cosmic timeline. Now, the text expands this narrative way beyond just one ancient lifetime. In fact, it claims this single soul incarnated at several huge, pivotal moments in planetary history. We're talking about jumping back an incredible 20,000 years to the legendary Mu continent, where he allegedly lived as a great saint named Eskrent. Millennia later, he shows up in the Middle East as Zoroaster. And then, jumping forward to the 3rd century AD, he reincarnates again as the religious unifier Mani. Okay, let's talk about that ancient Mu era for a second, because the details here are absolutely fascinating. As Eskrent, the text claims he initiated the very first customs of bowing to worship the sun, essentially bringing a religion of light to humanity way back then. But it goes further. It provocatively states that he practically applied what it calls pyramid power, and, get this, claims that the specific knowledge was directly taught to humanity by several species of extraterrestrials who were actively visiting the Mu continent at the time. Fast-forwarding a few millennia to his 3rd century reincarnation as Mani, the text outlines a really noble but ultimately heartbreaking endeavor. As Mani, he tried to pull off something incredibly ambitious, creating a unified world religion that blended the very best parts of Zoroastrianism, Christianity, and Buddhism. But as you might guess, the world just wasn't ready. He faced brutal persecution from both Orthodox Zoroastrians and the increasingly politicized Christian church of that era. His attempt at spiritual unification ended in a gruesome execution. It really highlights this dark, recurring theme in the text: the cosmic reformer constantly facing violent pushback from established orthodoxy. Section 3. Genealogy of Light and Dark, the Cosmic Players. To make sense of all these earthly tragedies, the channeled text maps out a massive spiritual family tree. The text explicitly maps out exactly who is who in this ongoing cosmic war. It clarifies that the god of light, Ahura Mazda, is actually a manifestation of El Cantare, which is the supreme spiritual entity in this specific belief system. Meanwhile, on the dark side of things, the devil of darkness, Ahriman, is identified as the devil Belial, historically known as Baal. And here's the crucial detail. The text identifies Belial as the son of another incredibly powerful entity named Enlil. The channel text places some heavy blame squarely on this Enlil lineage. It characterizes Enlil and his son Belial as gods rooted in fear, punishment, and curses. According to Zoroaster's channeled message, it was this specific dark lineage that infiltrated and totally confused the Middle Eastern concept of God, blending light and darkness together to create a highly punitive theology. Zoroaster strongly pushes back against Enlil's idea that humanity fundamentally must be punished. Instead, his perspective is framed as being much closer to Buddhism. He simply wants people to return to their natural, right state of mind, without all this need for vengeful cosmic retribution. Section 4. Views on Modern Religions, Observing the Present. So, what does this channeled spirit think about the world today? Let's take a look. The commentary on modern global faiths is pretty balanced, but definitely critical. When looking at Islam, the channeled Zoroaster praises the faith for keeping a very strong grip on its spiritual aspects and maintaining an acute awareness of the spirit world. He also notes its historical success in uniting religion and politics as a really unique civilizational experiment, though he does mention that certain practices feel outdated in the modern era. On the flip side, when observing Christianity, he notes that while it has driven incredible secular, scientific, and economic progress, he criticizes it for having lost so much of its original, mystical, spiritual essence over the centuries. Which brings us to a huge question. Having observed all the successes and failures of his past lives, and having critiqued the current state of world religions, where does a cosmic reformer look when evaluating the Earth right now? Where exactly is the focal point of today's global struggle? Section 5. Reincarnation Plan for China, the Secret Doctrine. This brings us right to the climax of the explainer. According to the source, the spirit of Zoroaster views modern China as the absolute greatest single problem in the world today. The text makes the argument that applying external political or economic pressure just isn't enough to break or change the rigid system there. Because of this, a secret doctrine is unveiled, a deliberate, strategic plan to reincarnate directly within China in the future. The goal isn't to conquer from the outside, but to be born as a citizen, spread spiritual truth from the inside out, and transform the entire system internally. Talk about an inside job, right? And that leaves us with a truly profound final thought to chew on. We've seen the tragedy of money, executed for trying to bring spiritual truth to a world that violently rejected him. So as we look at these esoteric prophecies of a future reformer planning to incarnate in one of the world's most restrictive systems, if a cosmic figure like that were born today, would our modern world even recognize their message? Or are we destined once again to just repeat the tragedies of our ancient past? It's a super compelling question derived from a really unique source text. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.